What is going on, YouTube? It is your boy MrBaboon back with a reaction video. This time we have Frederick the Great episode 4. We'll continue in the little series we got going. Well, watching the series that will, you guys see. Extra history uploaded. You guys can find the channel down below in the description, the video down below in the description, and my Twitch down below in the description. So, got the new Wi-Fi yesterday on the 12th. Today's 13th. Doing some testing and everything, seeing what it can, like, how fast, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty good Wi-Fi. I'm liking it. I will definitely say that. So definitely be prepared for a stream. A stream will probably be coming very soon, most likely. So make sure you guys know for that. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications if you guys are new, so you guys never miss a video. Let's get into the video though.
Berlin, December 28th, 1746. The newspapers, the banners, and the choirs of children all have a new name for their monarch, Frederick the Great. And the reasons are obvious to everyone who greets him as he returns victorious from the Second Silesian War. Not only had the Prussian army won every battle, Frederick had personally led his forces. At the Battle of Soor, Charles of Lorraine had ambushed Frederick's camp, the Austrians outnumbering his army nearly 2-1, but Frederick fought his way free. Then, when Prussia was under its greatest threat, when Austria and Saxony planned a two-pronged invasion to take Berlin, Frederick and his general had defeated both forces, taking Saxony's great city of Dresden and negotiating an end to the war. That's why the newspapers call him the Great. That, and the fact that he'd probably written ahead to inform them all of his new title. But if you've been watching this show for any extended period of time, you're probably going to be familiar with the next precedent. A great monarch cannot know peace for long.
Yes, we'll continue.
Do you want to see the next episode of this series immediately after watching this one instead of having to wait a full week? Well, now with the new Nebula first, you totally can. Learn how after the episode. Victory in the First and Second Silesian Wars secured Prussia's reputation as a rising power, and Frederick as a man to be reckoned with. It also bought him a decade of peace and splendor that could be attributed to not only his battlefield skill, but also two of his tenets when it came to warfare. The first was that Frederick believed over all else in the power of military speed. He who got his army out and able to act first won, and the best way to lose a conflict was to draw it out. He knew the Prussian army couldn't remain effective indefinitely, so his wars needed a quick conclusion. And the second reason was that while Frederick was good at war, he didn't like it. Even his mentor, Eugene of Savoy, had commented on this when Frederick was a young officer, and he meant it as a compliment. Frederick wasn't bloodthirsty. Frankly, he'd rather be at the new summer home he'd built in Potsdam, which he'd given the French name of Sans Souci, or Without Worries. There, in an environment of his own design, he was free to write poetry, play the flute, display his porcelain collection, dote over his beloved greyhounds, and gather about him an inner circle of philosophers and military officers, all of them male, as women were banned. Oh yeah, just a quick FYI here, Frederick was also a huge misogynist, which at least partway explains his antagonism towards both Maria Theresa and Empress Elizabeth of Russia. Also, if a guy in his inner circle ever got married, he often kicked them out. Said circle he developed included some of the most prominent minds in Europe.
It's the Hardee's Star Deal combo. Get a Hardee's Charbroiled Double Cheeseburger, crispy 3-piece hand-breaded chicken tenders, or original hot ham and cheese with a small fry and drink for just $5.99. My rewards members get exclusive offers on the Hardee's app.
I will say it's making me hungry, even though I hate all
The only thing I love more than kids is doing any...
Including his old editor Voltaire, who came to live in Prussia after stirring the pot a little too much in France. He also provided safe harbor to Julien Offray de la Métrie, a scandalous philosopher whose work argued that humans were just organic machines, no better than animals, and that the mind and soul were part of the body rather than a spiritual entity. In fact, he literally argued that humans were nothing more than a digestive system. Hot stuff at the time, especially since he denied the existence of God and advocated the pursuit of pleasure. And you bet these ideas jived with Frederick, who was privately an outspoken atheist. In fact, he found pretending to be religious one of the hardest parts of the masquerade he'd had to perform for his father. He once wrote that Christianity was a fiction, invented in the fevered minds of Asia, with its followers in Europe either being fanatics, imbeciles, or those pretending belief in order to gain power. He also jokingly suggested Jesus and the Apostle John were gay lovers. So suffice to say, at the time, Frederick was unconventional in his views. But that also led to tolerant religious policies that saw all Protestant groups given equality, and Catholics allowed to practice, though not allowed in civil service. However, he was also extremely anti-Semitic. Jews could live in Prussia, but had to pay a tax for security. Which honestly is just like Frederick. Seriously, for everything you learn about him that you like, he'll tend to have an equally awful quality. And that's definitely a pattern that's going to come up again and again. So watch out for that. This decade also provided his first really prolific period of writing. Partly, these histories were meant to burnish his reputation and iron out less complimentary episodes in his career. He exaggerated enemy numbers at Malwitz, for instance, claiming that the Austrians had a much larger force than they did, and casting his flight from the battlefield as a reluctant but daring escape. In addition, he wrote his first book on military theory, primarily to distribute to his generals. He also drilled his troops, because Frederick wanted to be ready for the next war. He innovated, adopting a new system of formation marching that ensured troops could quickly reposition, change direction, and adopt new formations on the battlefield. He figured out ways to go over broken ground or ditches while maintaining order, and adopted snare drums as a way of conveying orders, since they were easier to hear amidst battle than a human voice. He also promoted his younger brothers. Wait, did we not mention he had brothers? Well, he did, and they served as officers in the Silesian Wars, but now were made generals. Of the two, his youngest brother, Prince Henry, would become the most dependable. Henry had many things in common with Frederick, like his head for tactics and a tendency towards affairs with fellow officers. But he was also notably more measured. And Frederick would need dependable generals, because by 1756, Europe was about to see its First World War. Now, it would be far too much to describe in this series how the 7 Years' War started, since the motivations are enormously complicated. Like the War of Austrian Succession, it was an umbrella conflict that encompassed a lot of little wars. But in Central Europe, it was all about Silesia again. See, when Frederick took Silesia, the Protestant state of Brandenburg, Prussia, essentially announced itself as a challenger to Catholic Austria, which had held sway over the Holy Roman Empire for centuries. Worse, it gave Prussia a border right on Bohemia, meaning Prussia could invade Austrian lands at will. Austria needed Silesia back, and Prussia crushed. So, through a series of both public and secret diplomatic agreements, Maria Theresa had entered defensive alliances with both Russia and Saxony to support each other in case of Prussian aggression, then decimate Brandenburg, Prussia, and partition it amongst themselves. Frederick, for his part, had his eye on Saxony and Polish West Prussia, the conquest of which could link up his broken territories. But for all of his supposed genius, he badly bungled his diplomacy. What protected him from the Austro-Russian alliance was the support of France. But he also pursued and signed an alliance with its rival, Britain, promising not to attack the British royal family's German possessions of Hanover in exchange for Britain funding Frederick in case of war. But that agreement blew up the balance of diplomacy in Europe, so much so that it's now known as the Diplomatic Revolution of 1756. France became furious with Frederick for allying with its enemy Britain, leaving France isolated without any allies in Europe. And this wasn't the first time he'd screwed them over diplomatically either. There had been that secret truce with Austria during the First Silesian War, then making a separate peace with Austria and dropping out of the Second Silesian War. So, yeah, you could hardly blame France when they dropped Frederick as an ally and aligned with Austria. And the Russians, furious with the British having simultaneously negotiated a peace with them and their enemy Prussia, also pledged troops to Austria. This was a massive realignment of powers, and everyone started preparing for war. Frederick, seeing this, true to form, decided to strike first. And on August 26, 1756, he led his troops into Saxony. But this would not be Silesia all over again. Frederick blundered his way into an ambush in the fog, his troops raked by fire of hidden artillery and infantry. In a confused engagement, his cavalry charged twice without orders, and he accidentally fired on his own troops. While able to later spin it as a victory, the Austrians left the battlefield since they only wanted to halt Frederick. It was in reality a narrow defeat. "These are not the same Austrians," his officers muttered. Turns out, the enemy had been training too. Though he managed to capture Saxony, as was his plan, and impress their military into his own, but he did have to wait until winter ended to attack Prague, hoping to capture it and then march on Vienna. But then the Austrians
always be
met
one
him in
that
Prague.
slows everything
He attacked
down.
their positions across what appeared to be grassy hills, but that were in reality.
I have noticed that in videos like this, Winter Dude tends to slow war down, especially back then because pretty simple. We didn't have the technology back then like we do now, and all this other good stuff. You know what I mean? Like the heaters, the cars with the heat. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much. So I mean, back then was a lot. I feel like it was a lot rougher because there was no power, there was no heat. You had to, you know what I mean? For heat, you had to get a fire, which I mean, people still do that now. You know what I mean? So. Does that even make sense? I don't know. Thinking about it, maybe it doesn't make sense what I'm saying. It might be because I'm high. I don't know.
Fish ponds. They took the heights,
okay,
but at a cost. In 5 hours, Frederick lost 14,000 men and 2 of his best generals, including the one that had saved him at Malwitz.
Damn.
Depleted, he decided to take Prague by starving them out in a siege rather than by assault. But that was when the Austrian relief army of 54,000 came for him. And he was made to split his forces, leaving a detachment at the siege and facing the oncoming army with only 34,000 men. Soon, it would be Prussia against the world. And actually, that could be sooner than you think, because you can watch our 5th and final episode of our Frederick the Great series a whole week early and ad-free right now over on Nebula, our creator-owned and operated streaming service that I am super excited to tell you just got even better, as I'm sure you know. A slobber knocker!
Is that it?
Over there?
Yeah, that's it. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Frederick the Great. We got one more episode with Frederick the Great. I would say he could be definitely a piece of shit, but it looks like he tries to be a decent human being at times, but sometimes he's just a piece of shit. So let's just go and put that down because I mean this video said it pretty well. You know what I mean? We're going just watch the video, let me know what you guys think, okay? I will see you guys in the next episode. I just got that episode to go. So I will see you guys in the next one. Positivity is key, motivation is key, happiness is key. Let me know what you guys think about Frederick the Great so far. We got one more episode. I will see you guys in that episode. You guys stay safe, watch over each other, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys stay safe.